What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and I'm balancing my laptop on a table that's got tons of stuff on it. Um, Not my usual setup here. We're moving soon, so everything's everywhere and nowhere, all at the same place, all at the same time. But today we're gonna do another early bird Artcast, and we got Mr. Russ here. How you doing, Russ?
Hi there, how are you?
Awesome. Where can people find you?
You can find me at russleach.com, comicbookblackbelt.com, onlydeathcansavers.com. That's my book in progress at the moment. And you can pick up my email subscription list at any of those places. And of course, on YouTube is Comic Book Black Belt.
Awesome. And you can find me at donkeyjawprojects.com and Marsh Comics on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I haven't really been on TikTok that much lately, but I heard somebody talk about it the other day. They're like, have you ever downloaded that thing called TikTok or whatever? And I was like, well, actually, yes. And so anyways, I do love TikTok, but it's just something that takes more time than I have time for. So, anyways, I wanted to talk today about, I titled it Clocking In for Comics. And basically the idea of like the daily grind of making comics, because there's one thing to be inspired and get excited and be like, oh man, I have this cool idea and I really want to make a comic out of it, and I'm gonna jump into it and start working. But it's not always, first of all, depending on how you do it, like sometimes you're doing it that way, the way I just described it, but sometimes you're also doing it as an actual career, or you're doing work with another person on a collaborative project or something. And the thing is it's, as much as it seems fun at the start, it's not always the most exciting thing to do every minute of the time you're doing it. I mean, I do personally enjoy the process in most of the aspects of making comics. Even the stuff that seems like kind of boring, I can find some joy in that. And but I mean, it's not always the funnest thing. It's definitely a struggle sometimes. What do you think, Russ? Is it always super fun for you to get up in the morning and say, I gotta make the comics?
Short answer, no. Long answer, yes. The short answer is really derived from the fact that if you do it every day, if it's your career, then it does become a job, and it requires discipline to do it. So obviously, if you're at home most of the time, most freelancers are, you have to discipline yourself to get on and do that during the day. Also, it is a grind. That's exactly the word. You're not going to be inspired every day. As creatives, that's the way we roll. We're not always fully at the top of our mojo, as it is. So yeah, there are days when you think, how am I going to do this? But because it is your career, certainly in my case, it's my daily job, I don't have the luxury of saying, I don't feel like it today. I have to get on and do it. So you have to provide yourself with discipline. And then while you're doing it, pinch yourself. If this is your career, if this is something you're doing for your daily bread, pinch yourself and say, look, take a reality check. This is a fantastic job, and get on with it. And that kind of inspires me. You have to apply it to it as a job. You have to see it that way in my situation, because it's got to make money. It's a business. So the creative aspect is something sometimes you literally have to throw at it. You have to pull it out from somewhere and get on. And sometimes it can be mechanical. They're maybe not your best pages, maybe not your best creations, but the job is done. It's on time. It's to brief. And you know that you've made the mortgage payment. On the other side, there are days when you feel thoroughly inspired, and the fact that you're able to do this as for a living. I do constantly catch myself thinking, oh my God, I'm doing this. You know, I just uploaded a video actually about the last 10 years, my 10 years in comic book publishing, and where it's taken me and the kind of jobs that I've done and how I had to start off low tier and work my way up. And I'm still pretty much anonymous as far as American comics book publishing is concerned. But my journey has taken me from very, very low key work to working on films and being able to work with new technology, and being on big brands like Doctor Who and Cartoon Network, and working with Marvel. And even though I haven't done the editorial, the monthly stuff, I've been able to class myself as a Marvel artist. And to do that, to be involved in all that, you've just got to look on the plus side of it and say, wow, what a journey. And the only way to do that is to get up every day and do it. And sometimes that's a grind, unfortunately, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, and you know, it's crazy because I have heard some people, some creators, kind of talk about like how they can't like how hard it is, and talk of it as really almost like a burden sometimes. It's not what I often hear, because I'm in like the indie community, and we're all kind of doing it as a passion. You know, and I think professionals are too most of the time. So you don't really often hear it, but once in a while I do hear people kind of really talk about how hard it is, and I mean, you always hear that, but just like the almost how it's maybe not worth it or something, things like that. But yeah, I like that perspective though of like even if you're scraping by, and I mean when you have a family and you're trying to support a family, I don't think you really want to scrape by so much. You know, you really have to have some substantial stuff coming in. But when you know, there's a lot of people who are maybe single or just you know, they got you know, significant other, and it's just them kind of working it out. And you know, you can kind of scrape by and kind of be okay. Even if it's not on a lot, but you do it because you love it. But you know, sometimes I heard I was watching one of the live streams from Robert Ogre and Fogbreaker Studios. They're actually starting a new channel called Creative Chaos, which I can't wait to check out. And that's just going to be, you know, it's going to be the same thing they're doing now, but kind of a mutual channel, which definitely check that out. I've been loving their streams.
Those
But they,
guys are great.
yeah, it's funny because, you know, in the Discord, we get involved in a lot of things, and like a lot of people have told me like how much what I've been doing has inspired them, but then I see what they end up doing, and I'm like, I'm just as inspired, you know, when I watch their stuff. And one of the things Fogbreaker Studios said to that I totally resonate. I've actually talked about this before as well, but it's been a while. But you know, every day I go to work, you know, to my side hustle, aka the thing that brings home the bacon. But you know, and there's no days that I go there and I can just be like, you know what, I'm just not, you know, really inspired today. I don't think I'm gonna, you know, I don't think I'm really gonna do this today. I think I'll take a day. You know, I can't take a day off. You know, I have to make it happen. I have to clock in and make it happen every day. And you know, if I was doing that full time as a comic artist, I think I'd enjoy that better than you know, clocking in for a day in the warehouse, you know.
Oh, it's all relative, and it's first world problems, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like here we are talking about, oh, you know, the daily grind of being an artist. It's hardly scrounging for berries and going out and hunting your deer down, is it? Yeah, it's all relative, but it is a job and it is a grind, and you have to apply yourself. And for anyone, especially professionals out there, for anyone out there who sometimes gets down, or those people that say you can't make money out of comics, you can. It's just you've just got to do it the right way. And I'm no mogul. I'm not saying I've got all the answers or I know how to do it. I've only just started to put my own books together. I've been working on page rates for other people for the large majority of what I've been doing. But it's not just the comics. You can't expect comic books to be your only income if you're an illustrator, because it's not going to work that way. Not unless you're the top, you're up there doing pages constantly for Marvel. And even then, I've heard that the rates aren't what they used to be. So I think you have to be able to do either, like you're saying, the side hustle can be, a proper person's job rather than an artist's job, like you have. Or it can be an art job. Now, you see, the way I see it is I'm a full-time illustrator, but my primary direction is at comic book or sequential art. But that includes storyboarding. That includes doing advertising work. It includes doing, art for boxes, concept work for characters, for games, for all kinds of different things. So you've got to be able to, you've got to be able to spread yourself over several disciplines, or several mediums, would I say, and get out there and do it. If you think you're only going to be able to draw comics, and I was naive, I thought I could do that and get a page rate 10 years ago. How wrong I was. That's not the way it works. You have to do lots of things. And I think that should also include your own intellectual property. I think it's really important, something that never occurred to me when I started out and now has become extremely important to me. Not because I'm hoping to get a film from it or something like that, but because you're in control and you can write your own business model for it. And I think that's really important. And then the grind, much like when I've been self-employed myself since, or in my own company since 2000. So there does come a grind with any company that you own or self-employment basis that you're within. But you do it for yourself. You're not doing it for somebody else. The only somebody else there is the client or the reader or the fan or whatever you want to call them, your consumer base. And you've got to keep them happy. And as long as you're keeping them happy, that's great. The grind becomes, this is me, this is mine, I'm doing this. And that's where doing pages for other people, page rates, which was all I really wanted to do. I've said this before. I just wanted to be in the Marvel bullpen, and that was the end of it. And that translated when I got older into just, I just want to do pages for other people. I'd prefer it if I could just do pages and other people ink it, because I'm lazy. I just want to get down the guts of the story and make it work from panel to panel, and then walk away and do another page. But that's not realistic now. Especially even in page rates, people are expecting you to do inks as well. I kind of moved away from that naivety and realized that where it's at, real control is your own projects. And so if you have that, let's go back to my point, if you have that span of projects where you can make money, where you can invest your own time and money into something that will make you money later on, that's the way to do it. And sometimes it does become a grind, but because it's yours as a career professional, as an artist who's being paid to draw, you have to pinch yourself and say, wake up, this is really great, this is a great job, get on with it. So I think a lot of it comes down to discipline and pushing yourself, and spreading yourself over some different projects.
And I look forward to checking out that video that you're talking about, the new one, for sure, because I think we'll get a little bit more details on how that worked out for you.
Apologies, it's 40 minutes long, so it's me droning on about what's happened and what I've done and bits and pieces, but it was quite cathartic to just get that out and say, this is what has happened to me over 10 years. Skip to the next bit if you want, but if this helps anybody at all, and the core of what I was saying was, if you want to get into comics or if you want to get into artistic, creative roles, no two ways, no two journeys are the same. You've got to make your own journey. You've got to get out there and do it. And listening to what other people have done, maybe what I've done might help, but it isn't a course in. It isn't a way to get in. The only way to get in is to drive it yourself and get out there and do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So one thing I've noticed too, as I've been working on comics every day for 2 years now, and going on to the third, is sometimes, like right now is exactly that time for me. Sometimes I don't feel like making comics, or I do feel like making comics, but the inspiration is just not there. And that's kind of rare for me because I feel like I'm always inspired. But as of late, it's been more of that in the last few months than anything because um, I have just had so much going on in my life. I'm making a move. Just a lot of different things are changing around. And so I have to just manage a lot of different things, like just businessy type stuff, not with comics, but just with life. And so my mind's not fully there. When I sit there and try to, do something creative, it's sometimes a little more of a struggle. But one thing I'm realizing is I've done most of what I've been doing this whole time during this season is coloring, which I'm not necessarily the greatest colorer, but I'm learning and getting better every day. But I just got off of doing Lone Wolf, and I'm working on another coloring project right now. And it's just been really nice to be able to sit down and even do like flatting and stuff, and just kind of, I know I'm making progress with comics, even though it's not the most creative thing at the moment. I mean, I'm not saying coloring isn't creative, but the particular project I'm on right now is just a very simple color style. And it's basic. It's not even that much more than flatting. And so it is what it is, but I'm enjoying that process even. But it's nice to sit down and be like, okay, I don't have to like think up a story. I don't have to like figure out, because to me, it's funny you were talking about, it would be nice if I could just sit down and do the penciling basically the whole time. And that's like, for you, I feel like that's like almost the easy part. Not that it's not a challenge, but it's like that's your bread and butter. That's what you like to do. But that's, to me, like, I enjoy that as well. But that's probably one of, if not the hardest parts of making comics. That's the nuts and bolts of making comics. You have to make a lot of decisions. That's the part where I could do it now. I could also do that now, but it would be harder for me to do that. I have to, be a little more engaged than what I have been. So it's nice to have sometimes the kind of tasks that aren't the most fun, but you're still making progress at.
Yeah, definitely. You need time for your brain to relax. Don't push too hard for the ideas. I think they tend to come.
Yeah.
And as long as you're being active, which is exactly what you're doing, you're either colouring or you're inking or you're doing other bits and pieces. As long as you're still rolling and doing it, that's all that matters. Making sure that you do it. And like you were saying about Robert and Fogbreaker and yourself, I'm doing it to make money. I do it every day. This is what I do for a living. And I find you guys forcing yourselves to come home after a side hustle, hard work day at work and produce art, produce the content. You're so driven to do the things that you do. That's very inspirational to me, because it means that I can't look at myself. It's like that pinching yourself to say, come on, wake up. This is a great career you've got. This is a great place to be just because you're feeling a bit shit today. Excuse me. That's really inspirational to see other guys out there going, or girls, guys, whatever, saying, this is what I want to do. I'm dedicated to doing this. I really want to create stories and share with other people, which is what this is all about. It's all about communication and sharing. It's just via a particular way of doing it. And I find that very inspirational to see other people around me, which is why I sought out the group that we're all kind of in. I don't get enough time on the Discord server because it's just there's just so many things to do. I know that sounds like an excuse, but it's just so much to throw myself at. But it's great to have that group to dive in and out and see all these people that are just so dedicated to producing great content. Yeah, it is tough, and you do have to, kind of give yourself a break every now and then. But as long as you're doing something all the time, then you're still in there.
Yeah, exactly. I like that kind of thought too. I do have, I think, one other direction I want to go with this a little bit, but we do have a question from Dave Hingley, and I want to say too, Dave Hingley just put out a video yesterday talking about something that's actually pretty relatable to this. So I would definitely check out his YouTube channel. But he's got kind of a process for kind of keeping track of what you're doing with your comic or all your comic projects, actually. And I think that's actually an important and interesting way to kind of go about things. Like keeping track of things is actually a little bit of a motivator for me. Like I was doing like the keto diet, and there was this whole system of like how I could keep track of like everything I was eating and like not only the calories but also nutritional stuff. And I actually found that pretty darn motivating for when I was keeping track of things. So I would definitely check out his video. But first of all, Teresa's here. Hello, Teresa.
Hello. How are you? Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too.
Glad to see you pop in.
I made it in the end.
Yes. So Dave Hingley's question for us, because this I think is relatable too. If you are doing freelance work for a client and you have a deadline to deliver illustrations, how do you deal with the clients changing their priorities?
Work late. It's really he's absolutely nailed it. It is difficult. I think the way to manage it is first off to have a clear understanding of how much you think you are capable of doing in a day's work, and being realistic about your quotations as far as this is going to take me X amount of time, or I can apply this amount of time in my schedule to do a particular job, because that's at the very heart of it. If you say yes to too much, which is as an artist, especially as a jobbing artist, it's very difficult to say no to anything. But you must only say yes to what you know or you think you can get done. Realistically, you have to be realistic with yourself, and that does mean building in some time for things like the client changing their mind or having different priorities, as Dave is saying, and that's the way I manage it. In fact, it's because of the random nature of multiple clients, you can't really sort of manage it at a micro level. You have to do it at the more macro level over a larger scope, as it were, by making sure that you don't take on too much at once. That's probably not the answer he wanted, but it's the way that I deal with it, so that I've built in that time from the moment I say yes. I kind of know I've got roughly some jiggle room, as it were, that if they change their minds or they move something on or change a deadline, I can kind of manage it within my schedule. I see that really as the only real way of managing it, because you never know what one client is going to say compared to the other later on down the line. I mean, I was doing storyboards up until August last year, and then they decided that they wanted to bump them on until this year. They didn't tell me that straight away. They took 2 months to tell me. So they were saying, oh yeah, we're going to do some more. Oh yeah, we're going to do some more. So I had to not only allot myself the time for them just in case, but also go and find other work. As it happened, other work was coming through. So it is difficult. You do have to say yes, because you never know quite what's going to happen, but don't say yes to too much, especially especially stuff that isn't going to return you much personally. So it's not always about the money. It's about is the project going to help me, or is it just somebody's asking you to do something for money?
Yeah. And
There are, I know, it is about sort of making the mortgage payments, feeding your family, and all the rest of it. But and especially if you've got the side hustle, and your side hustle is the main way that you do work, and you do creative stuff for yourself in your own time, and you maybe get paid for some of that, which is a start into that career. Just don't overpromise and underdeliver. I suppose that's the way I deal with it. I know that's not necessarily a good way of suggesting how you would manage each individual client's wants and desires, but it's certainly a way of sort of cutting it off at the pass, if it were, as it were, to sort of make sure you don't overstretch yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing too, like, and I don't have a ton of experience with freelance work, but I have a little, and I've also listened to a lot of people talk about it. But their emergency isn't your emergency. You have to kind of look at it as, like they're looking at it as like the project needs to get done, and this is what I need from you. But you have to look at it as, well, this is the time I have, and this is what my priorities are. You want to, I think you want to please the customer and try to do whatever you can to help them, but there's certain things that are just unreasonable, and you have to let them know, hey, this is not what we talked about,
Yeah.
You're
going to have
you have to have those conversations.
Yeah. Or in some way say, okay, right, your priorities have changed. You need this part sooner. That's fine, but the part I was working on, you're not going to get until later on. You can't have them both. So it's kind of like swapping things around. But I mean, anybody in the chat or anybody watching this that manages clients will know that aspect of it. It's just how you approach it.
Yeah. I see it similarly. You need to know your limits and you need to set them, because nobody, like the client's not going to look out for you at any point. And of course, you're looking out for the client, but if you're not looking after yourself, you're not going to do a good job either way, and both are going to lose. So you have, your job as a freelancer is to look out for the client and for yourself at the same time, and find that point where those interests meet, because that's for the best interest of the client. Because if you burn out or you drop out, they're not going to win either.
Yeah.
So
there's more Teresa wisdom there.
No, because I've had problems with that at the beginning, where I was like, I can do everything you need as soon as you need it. And then I realized that a lot of people, especially people with companies, they're like, we need this tomorrow or yesterday, and they don't. They actually don't need it yesterday. They just want to take it off their list.
Yeah.
So if you say it happens a lot. So if you just tell them, oh, is it okay if I deliver it next week? They're like, okay, and they don't mind. So you can always ask.
As long as they've ticked it off their list, they know they're going to get it. That's it.
Exactly. So know who you're dealing with and what their actual needs are, because sometimes they over-exaggerate the deadlines because they're scared they're not going to take it off the list.
Yeah, it makes sense. So it's about time for me to get to my side hustle. But that being said, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to get to every question here. But hopefully next time. That being said, first of all, I guess, Teresa, let people know where they can find you. And also, do you have any kind of closing thoughts on, what motivates you to do comic work, like when you don't really feel like it, but you need to get stuff done?
Routine is my motivation.
That's a good one.
So if you can get into a routine on like every day I wake up, I do this. If you have the flexibility in your life, or like the structure in your life to get a routine going, I think routine is 1,000 times better than motivation.
Yeah, I honestly, that's a big part of the answer that we didn't get to that I wanted to talk about too. So I'm glad you added that. So where can people find you, Teresa?
They can find me here on YouTube, same name. And probably in the description as well. And on Instagram, same name, but you have to have underscores. So Teresa_del_Pilar.
Awesome. And thanks for joining us late. I'm glad you were able to pop in.
Yeah, sorry I was late.
That's no problem. I do this at a weird time. So, Russ, what about you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can see me on YouTube as Comic Book Black Belt. You can find me at russleach.com, comicbookblackbelt.com, onlydeathcansavus.com. That's my book. You can sign up for the email subscription list there. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, the usual places.
Awesome. And you guys know where you can find me, donkeyjawprojects.com and Marsh Comics on the social medias. Other than that, thanks for everybody hanging out with us. And there's going to be another cool video coming up Saturday morning. So definitely don't miss out on that. Don't miss out on Russ's latest video or Teresa's latest video. She had a good one recently too. So definitely check that stuff out. The links will be in the description. They're not at the moment, but they will be very shortly. And other than that, thanks for watching again, and we'll talk to you on the next one.
Bye-bye.